In 2007, Japan made an announcement that stunned the aviation world. They were going to build their first commercial aircraft in 45 years. The Mitsubishi regional jet would prove that Japan could compete with Boeing and Airbus. It would restore national pride. It would put Japanese engineering back on the global stage. 16 years later, that dream ended in a scrapyard in Washington state. Test pilots described the aircraft with a single word: uncertifiable. They were all covered by non-disclosure agreements. They could not say more. The first prototype ever built was torn apart by heavy machinery. The aluminum was shredded for recycling. No museum wanted it. No collector saved it. Japan's aviation dream became scrap metal. Here's the part that makes no sense. Mitsubishi builds fighter jets for the Japanese Air Force. They manufacture the wings for the Boeing 787 Dreamliner. They have 70 years of aerospace experience, yet they could not certify a 76-seat regional jet. Embraer did it with a fraction of the resources. Bombardier did it. Even China managed to certify a regional jet. But Japan? $10 billion, 16 years, 0 deliveries. This is the story of how 23,000 improperly documented wires destroyed a national dream, and why the test pilots knew from the beginning that this aircraft would never carry a single passenger. To understand this disaster, we need to go back to 2003. The Japanese government launched a 5-year research program. They invested $420 million to study whether Japan could build its own regional jet. The answer was yes. Mitsubishi Heavy Industries would lead the project. This was personal for Japan. The last Japanese commercial aircraft was the NAMC YS-11. It was a turboprop that first flew in 1962. Production ended in 1974. Since then, Japan had built components for Boeing and Airbus, but never a complete aircraft. The Mitsubishi regional jet would change everything. In June 2007, Mitsubishi unveiled their concept at the Paris Air Show. They showed a full-scale cabin mock-up. The design was sleek, and the technology was cutting edge. They planned to use Pratt & Whitney geared turbofan engines, the most fuel-efficient engines ever developed for regional jets. Here is a detail most people do not know. Mitsubishi was the launch customer for that engine. It was not Bombardier with the C-Series. Mitsubishi committed first. The original plan was aggressive. Certification was scheduled for 2012, with first deliveries in 2013. In March 2008, Mitsubishi officially launched the program. All Nippon Airways signed on as the first customer. They ordered 25 aircraft, 15 firm orders, and 10 options. Japan was back in the commercial aviation business. Or so they thought. The first delay came in 2012. Mitsubishi pushed the delivery date from 2013 to 2015. They blamed design refinements. The industry shrugged. New aircraft programs always slip a little. The second delay came in 2013. Pratt & Whitney needed more time to certify the geared turbofan engine. Deliveries moved to the second quarter of 2017, 4 years behind schedule. The third delay came in December 2015. The aircraft had finally flown. The first flight was November 11, 2015. It should have been a moment of triumph. Instead, Mitsubishi announced another delay. The reason? Insufficient wing strength. The landing gear needed to be redesigned for better safety. Deliveries moved to mid-2018. At this point, industry observers started asking questions. 3 delays in 3 years. Each one revealed a fundamental problem. This was not normal, but the real disaster was still coming. In January 2017, Mitsubishi dropped a bombshell. Deliveries were delayed again, this time by 2 years. The new target was mid-2020, 7 years behind the original schedule. The official explanation was vague. They said they needed to revise certain systems and electrical configurations. The real story was far worse. Mitsubishi had hired a Seattle engineering company called Aerotech to help with flight testing and certification. The Aerotech team had experience from Bombardier and Embraer. They knew how certification worked. When they analyzed the MRJ, they found something horrifying. The avionics bay had a fundamental design flaw. If water leaked from a ruptured waterline, it could knock out critical systems. If an engine exploded and parts penetrated the fuselage, there was no redundancy. A single event could cause catastrophic failure. Here is a specific example that captures the problem. The landing gear controller was designed with dual channels. That sounds safe. 2 channels means backup. But both channels were housed in the same box. One event could destroy both channels simultaneously. The landing gear might not extend. This is exactly the kind of single point of failure that certification authorities will never approve. But the avionics bay was just the beginning. The deeper problem involved 23,000 wires. In 2007, the Federal Aviation Administration introduced new regulations called EWIS, the Electrical Wiring Interconnection System. These rules were created after the crashes of TWA Flight 800 and Swissair Flight 111. Both accidents involved wiring problems. Under EWIS rules, every wire in an aircraft must be documented. You must show how each wire complies with safety standards. You must trace every connection back to the certification requirements. Mitsubishi started designing the MRJ during this period. They were aware of the new rules. But a Reuters source later revealed Mitsubishi was clearly aware of it, but did not apply it to the design. Hundreds of engineers wired the MRJ without using a common design framework. Each engineer did their job. The wires worked. The aircraft flew perfectly. But when Japanese regulators asked how each wire complied with EWIS standards, Mitsubishi could not answer. There was no traceability, no documentation linking 23,000 wires to certification requirements. The Reuters source said they decided it would be easier to start from scratch. Think about that. The aircraft flew, the systems worked, but the paperwork was so catastrophically incomplete that starting over was easier than fixing it. This is the part most people do not understand about aircraft certification. Certification is not about building an aircraft that flies. It is about proving that every single decision meets regulatory requirements. You cannot retrofit documentation. You cannot engineer your way out of missing paperwork. Mitsubishi treated certification like a manufacturing problem. They thought Japanese engineering excellence would be enough. They were catastrophically wrong. If you are finding this story interesting, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. We cover aviation business stories that reveal what really happens behind the scenes, the kind of details you will not find anywhere else. Hit that subscribe button and let us continue. By 2017, Mitsubishi knew they were in trouble. They recruited a team of Western experts. These were people from Bombardier, Embraer, and Boeing. People who had actually certified commercial aircraft. Alex Bellamy came from Bombardier to lead the rescue effort. David Barrow and Steve Harrow joined him. They brought real-world certification experience. What they found was devastating. According to Liam News, the Western team quickly recognized that the MRJ-90 was unsavable. The aircraft was too heavy for the American market. United States regional airlines operate under something called scope clauses. These are limits in pilot union contracts. Aircraft must weigh under 86,000 pounds and carry no more than 76 passengers. The MRJ-90 weighed 87,300 pounds, 600 kilograms over the limit. This meant that SkyWest and Trans-States could not operate it. Those two airlines represented 67% of firm orders. The Western team recommended killing the MRJ-90 entirely. They wanted to focus on a smaller variant called the M100. This aircraft would meet scope clause requirements and it would be certifiable. Mitsubishi listened. In June 2019, they rebranded the entire program as the SpaceJet. The MRJ-90 became the SpaceJet M90. A new M100 was announced for the American market. By the end of 2019, things seemed to be improving. Mitsubishi had nearly 500 commitments for the SpaceJet. Mesa Airlines signed a memorandum of understanding for 100 aircraft, 50 firm orders, and 50 options. The M100 was scope compliant. The certification problems were being addressed. Maybe Japan could still pull this off. Then Mitsubishi made a decision that sealed the program's fate. In January 2020, they fired the Western leadership team. Alex Bellamy, David Barrow, and Steve Haro were out. The people who understood certification were unceremoniously removed. Within 2 months, the world changed. COVID-19 became a global pandemic. Mitsubishi used the pandemic as an excuse, but the truth was already clear. Before we continue with the death spiral, there is one more detail that reveals how desperate Mitsubishi had become. In October 2018, Bombardier sued Mitsubishi in Seattle federal court. The lawsuit alleged that Mitsubishi had recruited 92 former Bombardier employees. According to Bombardier, these employees stole certification documents before leaving. They forwarded sensitive files to personal Yahoo and Gmail accounts. Bombardier claimed that Mitsubishi specifically targeted people with certification experience. They held job fairs near Bombardier headquarters in Quebec. They placed billboards outside Bombardier's flight test center in Wichita. One allegation was particularly damaging. A former Bombardier employee provided MRJ certification guidance while still on Bombardier payroll. He was using his personal email during Bombardier business hours. Mitsubishi called the allegations unfounded. They countersued, claiming Bombardier was trying to stifle competition. A federal judge eventually dismissed Bombardier's claims in April 2019. But here is the irony. Even if Mitsubishi did acquire Bombardier's certification expertise, it was not enough. They still could not certify the aircraft. The problems ran too deep. In May 2020, Mitsubishi closed all operations outside Japan. The Moses Lake Flight Test Center shut down. The Canadian Engineering Center closed. Hundreds of employees were laid off. The budget was slashed by 95%. The official statement said the program was paused, not canceled. Paused. This is a Japanese cultural concept called saving face. You do not admit failure directly. You pause. You reassess. You let time soften the blow. In April 2021, Mitsubishi cut 95% of remaining employees. Only 150 people remained from what had been a massive organization. In October 2021, Mitsubishi quietly notified the Federal Aviation Administration. They did not plan to restart development in the foreseeable future. The program was dead, but Mitsubishi still would not say it. On February 7, 2023, the announcement came. Seiji Izumisawa, the Mitsubishi Heavy Industries CEO, held a press conference. He said many people had high hopes and supported the project, so it is very unfortunate that we came to the decision to end it. He admitted what had gone wrong. In the early stages, we could not fully predict the scale and period of development. And to be honest, we were naive. We were not able to secure resources. We lacked understanding of the advanced type certification process for commercial aircraft. After 16 years and $10 billion, the admission was simple. They did not understand how certification worked. What happened next broke the hearts of aviation enthusiasts around the world. In April 2022, the third prototype was dismantled at Moses Lake. This was JA-23MJ. It had been painted in all Nippon Airways livery. It had appeared at the Paris Air Show in 2017. It had appeared at Farnborough in 2018. Now it was being torn apart. In March 2023, worse news came. JA-21MJ was being scrapped. This was the first prototype ever built, the aircraft that made Japan's historic first flight on November 11, 2015. Photographs showed heavy machinery tearing the fuselage apart. The rear section was ripped from the front. A shredding machine turned the aluminum into recyclable scrap. The aviation community was stunned. Why not donate it to a museum? Why not preserve this piece of Japanese aviation history? Even failed aircraft have historical value. The prototype could have taught future engineers what went wrong. Instead, it became aluminum fragments. The MRJ Museum at Nagoya Airport closed on June 30th, 2023. Even the museum dedicated to the aircraft could not survive. Before we wrap up this story, I want to hear from you. Did you know about the SpaceJet failure? Were you surprised by the scale of this disaster? Leave a comment below and tell me what you think went wrong. Was it arrogance, bad management, or is aircraft certification simply impossible without decades of experience? Now let us finish this. What did $10 billion and 16 years actually produce? 7 MRJ prototypes were completed. 6 were stationed at Moses Lake for testing. 1 remained in Nagoya. The flight test program accumulated 3,900 hours. The aircraft flew perfectly. There were no crashes, no safety incidents. The engineering was sound. But engineering was never the problem. Mitsubishi also spent $550 million to acquire Bombardier's CRJ program in June 2020. The idea was to give SpaceJet an instant global support network. With SpaceJet dead, that acquisition became meaningless. Mitsubishi wrote off the entire purchase price. The winners and losers are clear. Embraer won. Their E-175 remains the only scope-compliant regional jet in production. The engine technology dates back to 1982. But with no competition, there is no pressure to update it. Japan lost. Their attempt to rejoin commercial aviation ended in humiliation. They are already talking about a new attempt targeting 2035. But why would anyone trust them? The employees lost. 95% were laid off. The Western experts who tried to save the program were fired. The knowledge and experience scattered to the wind. And the airlines lost. All Nippon Airways and Japan Airlines waited 15 years for nothing. Mesa Airlines' 100 aircraft order vanished. There is a deeper lesson here about what it takes to build commercial aircraft. Mitsubishi builds fighter jets. They build warships. They build nuclear power plants. They are one of Japan's most sophisticated engineering companies. But commercial aviation certification is different. It is not about building something that works. It is about building something you can prove works. Every decision must be documented. Every wire must be traced. Every choice must connect back to a regulatory requirement. One forum poster captured it perfectly. The production process was not certifiable. Basically, they would have to rebuild the process, the documentation, and everything else from the ground up. Not certifiable. The test pilots knew. They called the aircraft uncertifiable. They could not say more because of their non-disclosure agreements. But they knew from early on that this aircraft would never carry passengers. The Western rescue team knew. They told Mitsubishi the MRJ-90 was unsavable. Mitsubishi fired them. Even the Bombardier employees allegedly recruited for their expertise could not save it. The problems were too fundamental. Unsavable. Japan's aviation dream began with hope in 2003. It ended with a shredding machine in 2023. Shredding machine. $10 billion, 16 years, 23,000 undocumented wires, 6 delays. One word from the test pilots. Uncertifiable. The aircraft that flew perfectly. The aircraft that could never be proven safe. Safe. The aluminum is recycled now. Somewhere, fragments of Japan's dream are being turned into something else. Maybe beverage cans. Maybe car parts. Maybe components for a Boeing 787. Recycled. The same aircraft whose wings Mitsubishi still builds today, because that is what Japan remains in commercial aviation. A supplier, a component maker, not a competitor. Supplier. The SpaceJet was supposed to change that. Instead, it proved why certification expertise cannot be bought. It cannot be borrowed. It cannot be stolen from a competitor's employees. It must be earned through decades of experience, through programs that succeed, through lessons that come from actually delivering aircraft to customers. Mitsubishi had none of that, and now neither does Japan. Thanks for watching this video. If you made it this far, you are clearly interested in the real stories behind aviation's biggest disasters, the business decisions, the executive failures, the hidden mechanisms that explain why things go wrong. That is what this channel is about. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications. I will see you in the next video.